Hey, greetings everybody, it's GleeCon here again with another episode of Lore of Warcraft. On our last episode we read quite the somber tale of the funeral of Lyrath Windrunner. The family's basically divided or dead, and Sylvanas has hardened herself into a ranger general that will do anything and push her forces in the most harsh way in order to accomplish her goals, which is ultimately the safety of the people she cares about. Stay a while and listen as we do a little interlude to wrap up this section. Yeah, here we go. Anduin was quiet for a long while after Sylvanas finished speaking. "War is a terrible thing," he began. "I take no joy in what you have endured. No matter what is gained or for what cause, something is always lost. And sometimes war takes the best of us. I'm sorry for the pain you and your family endured." No, Sylvanas thought. He would not gloat, not Anduin. Even here in this place of unthinkable cruelty, where one could not ever quite escape the screams of suffering, he would not harden himself sufficiently to find glee in another's anguish, even if it was that of one who had caused so much anguish herself. "They seem like a kind people," he said, more to himself than her. Then his gaze darted back to her and his face hardened slightly, even though he gave a small smile. "Even you, Sylvanas." "How is that for something strange?" She looked away. She had not told him everything, of course. Some of the darkest, most bitter moments would remain hers and hers alone, and she would never tell him how far from strange his words were. Now the young king rose, stiff from sitting, and moved about in a circle, stretching his arms and rolling his head. "What I find most interesting," he said, pausing and regarding her, "is Nathanos." She stiffened. "What about him?" "I don't think any of us ever thought you cared so deeply for him." "He was useful to me." Anduin smiled almost slyly and nodded. "Oh, certainly, that was it." More seriously, he added, "Perhaps later. After." He paused. "Later, that became true. But you are not as inscrutable as you think yourself to be." Then almost kindly, "I saw it on your face." She had forgotten how good he was at reading people. "And if after all that's happened, you feel something when you speak about him, then that tells me your mortality is still with you, still connecting with. You make my case for me," Sylvanas said, also rising to her feet. "Pray tell me, then, what the value of life and joy and love is, if we are forever severed from those connections in death. They are worth nothing at all. Indeed, they only serve to cause pain in the very act of remembering." "So you and the jailer are going to fix that," Anduin said. His tone was a mixture of scorn and pity, and she liked neither. "We are." The strength of her conviction was audible even in her own ears. Zoval had the knowledge, and once he reached the sepulchre, the power to reshape reality. A vast concept for mortal minds, but Sylvanas had understood it. That was why he reached out to her. She could grasp the enormity of it, weigh the benefits of their plan against its equally enormous cost. "Your life has been cruel," she said. "What has kept you going? The light. Hope. The Shadowlands reward your service and faith by erasing your memory, twisting who you are. Everyone has the right to choose how." An incredulous laugh cut her off. "I don't think you can even see it, Sylvanas. You've been blinded." "See what?" "The depths of your hypocrisy. How many souls have you stripped of their choices by cutting their lives short? How can you stand in front of me, somehow finding righteousness in these acts, as if you are no better than any other butcher? After all you've done, you're not even better than Arthas." There it was. He had been turning it around in his mind, as Sylvanas suspected, waiting for the right moment to trot it out for maximum effect. Her father would have approved of the young king's tactics, but in retreading such painful ground, all in an effort to show how deep the iniquity of life and death went, Sylvanas was armoring herself. The king had miscalculated. Now the hated name slid off her as a blade might off a gleaming steel plate. Arthas was, I see now, simply another step in the journey I had to take. The journey that now brings me to the precipice of justice. All right, so where we would naturally go if we were chronologically following things would be into the Third War, which is where we are now, where Sylvanas plays a pretty moderate role and ultimately dies to Arthas, as we read in that Blood of the Highborn. I peeked ahead where the next, because I wanted to know if we should continue reading, and it really starts sometime after that. Now, I didn't want to spoil too much and read too deeply, but it really seems to me when I message when I email X Akarat or whatever his name is, X Akariat, or if no one has posted it by then, so we can say the first part happens, over hundreds of years or so, or at least decades before the Dark Portal, and the second section's happening, kind of spanning through the first and second wars. This third part, it seems to me, is covering the material. Now, again, I haven't played it, but I think the expansion to Warcraft 3, whatever it's called, the Frozen Throne or something like that, I do think one of the campaigns is an Undead or Scourge campaign, and I think, or Forsaken maybe even by then it's called, but I think that Sylvanas is the leader in that one, and she's fighting against Arthas. So I think that's what part 3 is going to cover. I think it kind of skips everything in part 2, maybe because it's covered so well in the game, or maybe that's what she's alluding to, where I won't tell him the worst parts, because the parts where she dies, becomes a banshee, has to oversee the cutting off, the killing of the rest of her kingdom, that would be pretty dark. But also that would be something pretty well chronicled. There are no novels that cover it. We are now done with all long histories. We will, as we go through the rest of Warcraft 3, the first half, we'll still check in with chronicles from time to time. But we are, other than one small prologue of a book as an aside, we are completely done with all side lore, not counting Dancing Between Chronicles. So starting on the next episode, we will be continuing to play Warcraft 3, but this one's in the pipe 5x5. I thank everyone so much for watching and for listening, and I'll see y'all next time on Lore of Warcraft.